I didn't make a big announcement. I didn't post photos with golden filters or write a caption that made everyone pause. I didn't stand on the digital rooftop of the world to shout, "Look at me now." I just wrote one quiet message, and I sent it. To you. No fanfare. No explosion of attention. Just a whisper in the inbox of someone I used to imagine a future with. A future that never came to pass, but one that still lingered somewhere soft in the corner of my chest. Because you see, I got married, not just with papers or promises, but with presence, with both feet planted in love, with a heart that no longer needed to pretend it wasn't still healing. But before I stepped fully into this new chapter, I felt something tugging, a silence I hadn't addressed, a chapter that never closed properly. And I realized I couldn't begin this next life without setting the old one down. Not to destroy it, not to curse it, but to honor it just enough, to let it go. So I told you, quietly, privately, because you had once mattered, because you were once the center of everything I thought would last. And even though time pulled us in opposite directions, even though life built walls where once there were open doors, a part of me still needed to close the loop with truth. I didn't write to rekindle. I didn't write to sting. I didn't even write with hope. I wrote with stillness. The kind of stillness that only comes when you've wrestled long enough with memory and finally stopped needing it to change. I wrote because I owed my new life an honest beginning, not one cluttered with unsaid things and silent maybes. Maybe you read it. Maybe you didn't. Maybe it blinked on your screen for a second and then disappeared forever. Or maybe you paused. The way I used to pause on your name, unsure whether to open something that might tug at old wounds. I'll never know. And surprisingly, I've made peace with that. Because I didn't write it for a reply. I wrote it for release, for truth, for peace. The hours passed. Then a full day. Nothing. And somehow that silence felt okay. Not like rejection. Not like avoidance. Just like a mutual knowing. Like we both understood without needing to speak that whatever we had once clung to no longer fits in the lives we now live. The silence wasn't cruel. It was just complete. I didn't panic. I didn't wish I could take it back. I didn't reread it 50 times hoping to catch a glimpse of what you might feel. I just breathed. I sat with it. The message wasn't meant to open anything. It was meant to close it, with grace, with finality, with kindness. Because some chapters don't end with a slam. Some just fade softly, like the last song of a long night. There was a time when I couldn't imagine a day without you. When your absence felt like something sharp and unending. But the day I told you I got married, I didn't feel that sharpness anymore. I felt clarity. Because I finally understood that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about carrying something differently. It's about realizing that not all stories are meant to be finished. Some are just meant to be let go. And I did let go, not with bitterness, not with sadness, but with calm. That little message, so simple, was years of unspoken emotions finding their breath. It was my way of saying, you were a part of me. You helped shape this heart. But now, I'm giving it fully to someone who showed up for the version of me that stopped waiting for echoes. I found someone who stayed, who didn't ask for the highlight reel, who didn't need the polished version, who looked at my mess and said, I'll meet you there. She didn't ask about you, not directly, but she knew. She could feel that there were parts of me still learning how to rest, and instead of questioning, she gave those parts a place to land. She didn't compete with ghosts. She didn't try to silence the past. She simply stayed. She stayed through my quiet days, through the moments where I drifted, through the long silences when I didn't know how to speak the things that still echoed. And in her staying, she helped me stop holding my breath. When I told her I sent you a message, she didn't flinch. She didn't ask for receipts or backstories. She simply nodded and said, You don't owe me a perfect past. Just thank you for giving me your honest present. And in that moment, I knew. This is the kind of love that doesn't demand closure for what came before. It just builds a life so safe, so steady, that you stop needing to look back. We didn't rush into perfection. There was no countdown clock or curated life on display. Just two people who chose slow mornings, clumsy dinners, quiet nights. 2 mugs, then 4. One for her, one for me, 2 for when we forgot to wash the dishes. It wasn't grand gestures. It was how she noticed when I got quiet. How I started saying we without catching myself. We faced the hard stuff too. Not in anger, but in presence. Not walking out, but sitting in the discomfort until it softened. And when I told her I was scared, not of her, but of failing again, she didn't turn away. She just took my hand and said, "Then let's learn together." I used to think love had to be perfect, that healing meant erasing, but she showed me a different way. She showed me that peace doesn't have to be fleeting, that you don't have to hide the scars for someone to love you, that the right person doesn't need you to be flawless. They just need you to be there, honestly. And so we built something real, not with blueprints, with presence, with shared routines and silent understanding, with mornings where her hum fills the room and I don't feel like I need to be anything other than who I am. One evening we were cleaning out an old box. I found a letter, yours, familiar handwriting, no name, just soft uncertain words written by 2 people who didn't yet know how to hold love without squeezing too tight. I read it slowly. I didn't cry. I didn't ache. I just breathed. And I knew, I'm not that man anymore. I used to read your words hoping they'd pull me back into something unfinished. That letter used to hold weight. That evening it didn't. It held memory, not longing. Because when she walked in barefoot with 2 cups of tea and asked, "Does it still hurt?" I could say honestly, no, not anymore. Not with you here. And that's when I knew. This is healing. Not in dramatic moments. Not in declarations. But in soft evenings where an old letter doesn't stir your chest anymore. Because what you have now is more than enough. It's whole. We weren't chasing ghosts. We weren't revisiting wounds. But one day we passed by that place. You know, the one. Where so much was left unsaid. And something in me paused. She noticed. She always does. We parked. We walked. Not to reopen anything, but to reclaim it. The street looked smaller. Not in size. In weight. Like I could breathe again there. Like that sidewalk no longer held my sadness. We reached that old bench. The one where I once sat thinking this is the end. I turned to her, voice quiet, and said, "I once sat here thinking love might never find me again." She didn't say a word, just reached for my hand and squeezed it. And in that moment, I didn't need closure anymore, because I had the answer. Sitting right beside me, the calm after the storm, the steady after the ache, the love that doesn't ask you to forget, but invites you to finally live again. So yes, I sent the message. I quietly told you I got married. And now maybe everyone knows. But it's never been about them knowing. It's been about me finally being okay with it all. With the way things ended. With the silence. With the life that didn't happen. And more importantly, with the one that did. The soft proof that love, when it's right, doesn't need to shout to be real. It doesn't have to fix every old wound. It just has to be gentle with the scars. That bench used to feel like the end of something. Now it felt like a beginning I didn't know was waiting for me all along. Not because we went back to change the past, but because standing there with her reminded me that healing doesn't erase what was. It just builds something new on top of it. Something sturdier. Something warmer. Something that says, you made it through. And maybe that's why I sent the message to you. The one from before. Not to reopen anything, not to dig through ashes, just to say quietly that I had finally found peace, that I wasn't waiting anymore, that the story we didn't finish didn't need another chapter. It needed a kind goodbye, the kind you whisper more to yourself than to the other person. I told you I got married not because I wanted you to feel something, but because I didn't want to carry it like a secret. Because secrets become shadows. And I didn't want shadows in this love. Not anymore. She knows about all the rooms, in my heart. The dusty ones. The ones I locked for too long. The ones that echo with what-ifs. and she doesn't try to paint over them. She just sits there with me. When I need to go back and visit for a moment, just to remind myself how far I've come. That's what love feels like now. Not a storm, not a chase, not fireworks that burn out too fast, but a steady light that doesn't go out even when everything else does. A warmth I can come home to again and again. I'm not angry that you didn't respond. I'm not sad either. I think in some way your silence honored the truth of what we were, of what we aren't anymore. And that's okay. Not every love turns into a lifetime. Some just teach you how to feel deeply, how to lose gracefully, how to grow. You were that. A season I don't regret. A chapter that shaped me. And now, this is a different book entirely. And in this book, I've learned things I never knew I needed to know. Like how peaceful it can be to fall asleep next to someone who understands your silences. How healing it feels when you can laugh freely without thinking of who used to make you laugh. You laugh.